I saw a video not too long ago. I think it was a video by Jubilee, and the video, or at least this part of the video, was is being poor a choice? And by the way, the Jubilee video, I'm going to link in the description below if you want to check out the full thing. It's pretty long, but it's very interesting. Essentially, they had poor people versus millionaires, and they were kind of debating to, I guess, get different perspectives and kind of just find a middle ground and see what each other's perspectives and opinions were, based on a variety of topics involving being rich versus being poor, all that stuff. One of the questions was, is being poor a choice? Now, when it comes to being poor, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. And I'm going to give you my 2 cents from the perspective of productivity and time because they're extremely relevant to that question. Is being poor a choice? Yes and no. It's not a choice in the sense that some people are born into circumstances that make achieving wealth difficult or virtually impossible. I'm going to give you an example. I've made this point before. If you're someone that lives in a completely different country and maybe the only way for you to get wealth by, let's say, a global standard is to move to, say, the US or a country where economic advancement is a possibility, then it's not quite a choice that you're poor. It's more of the dice was rolled for you when you were born, and you were just born in a place where this opportunity is not present. Some people, if you live in America or if you live close to America, might take this for granted. They might think, well, they can always just come to America if they wanted to. It's not always the case. There are some countries and there are some governments that make it extremely difficult to do that. There are some countries and some governments that will not allow you to do that. Maybe you haven't heard of them, but just because you haven't heard of them doesn't mean they don't exist. So in that aspect, yes, being poor is not a choice because you might want to increase your wealth. You might have the drive to increase your wealth. You might even have the intellect to do so as well, but you don't have the opportunity to do so because maybe the advantages that other people have are not present for you. So that's one way to answer the question. Now, there's the other way to answer the question, and I think this is the answer that's more relevant to more people. Is being poor a choice? For most people, yes. And the reason why, to a big degree, it is a choice, it's because in order for you to get from poor to middle class, and I just want to put something out here. When I say is being poor a choice, what I'm saying is being like at the poverty level a choice relative to being at the middle class level. I'm not saying could someone go from being poor to being rich. I don't think everyone can do that. And I don't think everyone should do that. But do I think that everyone could go from making, say, for example, $10,000 a year to $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 a year? Absolutely. I think that's possible for most people in a country like the US or a developed country, at least in the West. Just because I don't know much about like all Eastern countries, so I don't have an opinion on them. But a lot of things, and this is something I've seen consistently, the reason why people stay poor or the reason why people don't advance from an economic perspective is really just because they're unwilling to put in the effort. They're unwilling to try. And a big, big, big component of them not willing to try, not willing to put in the effort, is they don't spend their time wisely. What do I mean by this? I've said this in the past. If you were to sit there and just look at the average day of the average man, it would astound you how much time they waste on stuff that does not matter. I'll say this, as someone who's on YouTube, I get tons of people who dislike my content. I get tons of people who leave stupid comments. That's a waste of time. It's a blatant waste of time. Why is it a waste of time? Because you leaving a comment does not serve you any benefit besides maybe making you feel good in the moment, but that's a waste of your time. It doesn't really help you in the grand scheme of things. You leaving a hateful comment does not make you more money. It does not give you status. No one knows who you are. You're a nobody. You scrolling infinitely through social media and through YouTube does not help you. Scrolling in itself does not make you more money. It does not teach you more things. It does not give you status. It does not benefit your life. It's a waste of time. Meanwhile, for people who are producing content, regardless of how much you hate on their content, it doesn't hurt them at all. You hating their content pushes them up in the algorithm, which leads to more people who might like them seeing them. It's a waste of your time. Watching Netflix too much, it's a waste of time. There's nothing on Netflix that'll benefit your life in such a way that it'll get you more money. The only thing that'll get you more money, assuming you want to go from poor to middle class or maybe from middle class to wealthy or wealthy to rich, is you taking the steps you need to take in order to get from point A to point B. That's it. That's really all it takes. And I'm oversimplifying, of course, but in the grand scheme of things, that really is all it takes. It just takes you doing A, B, and C long enough without failing or understanding that you will fail, but you have to still keep trying and on a long enough timeline until you get to the results that you want. That's how everyone gets wealthy or rich or increases their economic position in life, at least over here in the West. Most people just waste their time though. Most people, they wake up every day, they go to work, they have no plan for what they're gonna do after work. They come home from work, they binge TV, they binge Netflix, they play video games all day, they might go out shopping, they might hang out with friends. They're doing things that are more or less a waste of time in the grand scheme of things. On an individual day, none of these things are terrible, but if you do these things every single day, then it's a waste of time because it doesn't lead you from point A to point B. And this is why, oh, my finger's in the way. And this is why most people are poor. This is why being poor for most people is a choice. It's because they're choosing not to do the things that'll get them from point A to point B. They're choosing to do the things that will lead to a flourishing life. They're choosing to do the things, they're choosing not to do the things that'll lead to them actually improving whatever situation they're in. So they're choosing to be poor. If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you're choosing to be poor. And why do I say that? You might think to yourself, by the way, well, this is an educational video. I'm watching it, therefore I'm learning something. And if I learn something, that means that I am putting myself on a path to actually bettering my circumstance. You're partially correct. The act of trying to learn and the act of having good intentions doesn't set you apart from pretty much everyone else. The issue is that you need to take action. And that's, again, where most people fail. There's most people down here, like I would say like 90% of people who don't even try to like have goals or have plans. This is like one of the biggest things I've seen, by the way, with my clients and at Productivity Accelerator is people just don't have goals. People don't have goals. And if you have no goals, you can't go anywhere in life because how can you get to a destination that's not defined? You can't. Even if you were to reach the top of the mountain, if you did so unintentionally, it means nothing. And you end up just like walking back down, not realizing what goal you may have accomplished. Hopefully that like little analogy, I guess, makes sense. Or it's like a treasure map. If you are looking for treasure and you don't have a map and you don't have any real place to like start searching, you'll just wander, digging in random areas, hoping you'll find the treasure. You probably will never find it unless it happens randomly. But if it does happen randomly, is it really worth it in the first place? I don't know. The point that I'm making, most people, like 90% of people, live life without any intent. And that's the reason why they fail. That's why they choose to be poor. Then there's probably about, I would say 6% of people above them. Actually, the remaining 10% of people try to learn new things. They understand they're deficient in something. They have a desire to get from where they are now to that next step. That's the remaining 10%. But out of the remaining 10% of people, probably about 8 to 9% of the remaining 10% of people, they do things like this. They just watch content and they hope that by watching the content or by wishful thinking, the things they want will eventually become true. That's not how the world works. The remaining 1%, they understand if I take action on the things that I want over a long enough timeline, then there's a good chance I might get the things I want. It's not guaranteed, but there's a good chance. I've talked about this in many videos before, but when it comes to achieving success, it doesn't matter what the field is. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter if you want to be an expert martial artist. It doesn't matter if you want to be an Olympic athlete. It doesn't matter if you want to write a book. It doesn't matter if you want to be a great entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you want to learn multiple languages or write a comic book. It does not matter. Whatever the field or activity or goal is, the way to achieve success in anything, there are 3 ways. No particular order. You need to have grit. You need to be consistent. And you need to iterate. Grit. What is grit? You're going to fail. Grit is you understanding that you'll fail and continuing to pursue whatever your goal is despite the failure. That's what grit is. Consistency. You need to do something over a long enough time period in order to see results. A lot of people, they work out. They don't get a six-pack as quickly as they want to. They don't build muscle as quickly as they want to, so they stop trying altogether. They're inconsistent. They're not consistent, and that's why they'll never see results. Because they're not consistent. You need to do things over a long enough timeline to get something, at least if it's worth having. Iteration. chances are you don't know the exact steps to get from where you are now to what you want. This is where iteration comes in. You need to tweak the path and the actions you're taking over a long enough timeline in order to get to where you want. You're constantly course correcting like a plane in the sky. That's what iteration is. You watching this video right now, if you really want to take action on whatever your goal is, after this video, you'd shut YouTube off and you'd get to work. And chances are, whatever you're working on probably won't go the way you want it to go. You'll probably start a business and you won't make $1 million tomorrow. You'll probably try to write a book and realize it's a little bit more difficult than you once thought it was. That's cool. Iteration is, all right, I'm writing this book. It's difficult. I'm not finishing it right away, but I'll keep writing. Or the process I'm taking is causing me to stall, or the book's not working out correctly. Or I wrote the book and the book didn't sell well. How do I iterate? I'll rewrite the book in a different style or with a different topic or with better words. That didn't work out. Okay, so I'll try it again, but with more marketing. I'll push much harder this time to market the book than I did last time or the last 2 times. And this time, that's what worked. That's iteration. It's you constantly tweaking the variables over the course of you having grit, over the course of you being consistent. It's you tweaking the variables to get from point A to point B. Does that make sense? Those are the 3 keys to success. Now, only the 1% of people do those 3 things. Like I said, there's the 90% of people at the bottom who will do nothing ever in life because they haven't even thought about doing something. It's the kind of person who will see someone like me, see an ad from someone like me about Productivity Accelerator, or they'll see a book about maybe a new concept or a new skill that could potentially help them in life. And they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, it's a scam. Oh, I don't need it. Oh, I'm better than that. Or it just won't even like cross their consciousness, if that makes sense, because they have no desire to actually improve or grow. They're content with exactly where they're at in life. That's 90% of people. The 10% of people, you guys want to learn, you guys are ambitious, you guys want to improve, but most of you guys just don't take action. You guys don't take any real action. Most of the people I come in contact with for Productivity Accelerator are in that like 9% category. They're not quite the 1%, but they're the 9%. And what I mean by this is I've had so many conversations with people where they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, you know, I've seen Productivity Accelerator. I'm kind of interested in it, but I feel like I'm plenty productive right now. And then I'll sit there and ask, okay, you're productive, cool. What's your goal? I don't have a goal. You're productive, but you have no goal. So what are you productive in? How do you measure your productivity if you don't have anything you're striving for? That's the 9% of people. You think you have the answers and you think you're on the right path, but you've gone nowhere because you're not really taking any objective action. When you start taking objective action, this is when the productivity kicks in. This is when all the stuff that I teach kicks in. But you'll never get to that point unless you start with a goal. The 1% of people, they're off to the races. They're moving. And these are the best people, in my personal opinion. This is the kind of person who has at least tried to write a book. Maybe it's not a perfect book. Maybe it didn't sell, but they've still written the book. They're still successful by most metrics because they've actually done something. This is the kind of person who has goals, who knows what they want, or at least has an idea of what they want, and they've put some effort into achieving that ideal concept of what their future should, or at least what they want it to look like. The difference between all 3 of these categories, the 90%, the basically 8 to 9%, and that final 1% is choice. It's a decision. You watching this right now, if you think you're in that bottom 90%, how do you get to the remaining 10%? You can choose to enhance your mind by learning more. You can choose to sit there and say to yourself, I'm probably deficient in many things if I'm not making the amount of money that I want to make. Okay, so I need to fix that. How do I fix that? I need to learn from people who might know more than me. I need to learn new skills that'll get me from here to there. That's how you take action. That's the decision you need to make. If you're in that 10%, you might know the things, you might have the insights, you might have the ambition. How do you get from the 10 or the 8 to 9% where you're at to that 1%? I got to take action. I need to decide to take action. I need to choose to take action. And part of choosing to take action is taking the right action. There's some people, they take actions and it's not a wise action. It's not a good decision. One of the things is a little bit of a side tangent. When I work with business owners, one of the things I see a lot with business owners is they try to make too many decisions that do not matter, and they ultimately lead to the business owner not making any progress. It's kind of like as a business owner, you might think to yourself, oh, there's this new AI tool that's out there. There's this new salesperson that keeps calling me trying to get in my business because they said they'll get me more leads. There's this new software that I could use to maybe decrease my payment processing by like 0.5%. There's this other guy that reached out to me about these phone calls, and he's saying that I can upgrade to like these Wi-Fi phones, and maybe the Wi-Fi will sound a little bit clearer. I've never had an issue with that before, but it might sound a little bit clearer. You choosing to entertain any of these options is a decision. It's a choice. What most business owners do is they choose things incorrectly. They choose to put their attention to things that do not matter and that don't lead to their ultimate goal. Why do they do this? Because a lot of business owners don't have concrete goals, or they have really bad goals. So they make bad decisions because they don't have good goals where they can sit there and say, does this decision lead to the outcome that I want? This is what you should not do. And this is the difference between someone who chooses to be poor. And this is the difference between someone who chooses to be poor versus someone who chooses to be rich. Choosing to be rich, or choosing to not even be, to just not be poor, because you can be middle class and still not be poor. Choosing to not be poor is just you choosing better decisions. That's really it. That's it. You're just making better decisions. And that's what productivity is. Being productive is you making good quality decisions over a long enough time period to the point where you get to at least close to the things you want. At least you're making progress toward the things you want. That's really it. So, to wrap things up, is being poor a choice? For a small contingent of people, no, it's not really a choice. It's something that they're just born into, and they can't really help it. They can't fix it, and it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. For most people, at least here in the West, is it a choice? Yeah, it's a choice. If you're watching this right now and you feel like you're not financially where you want to be, you're choosing to be poor. How do you choose different? Start choosing things like Productivity Accelerator, a group where for free, we help you get from point A to point B. That's my solution. There are many books out there that can help you achieve that exact same thing. You can find other people besides Productivity Accelerator that could do something extremely similar. Whatever you do, choose wisely. Hope this video helped. Hope it makes sense, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out and bye.